Good evening, everybody. We'll start at 6:04. And Sue, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
You can mute. Let's keep everybody muted except Sue. She wants to. Yeah. That's okay. That's Bobby. She's not going to be able to unmute. Bobby, can you hear us?
Hello?
Hi, we're just seeing if you can hear us yet.
I can, but I'm trying to call on the house phone. Can you let me in on that line?
I don't see you calling in. Are you calling in now?
Yeah, I'm in the waiting room, they said.
Okay, hold on just a second. Sandra's gonna save me. I don't see it. Should be right up there. There's nothing here showing that anyone's waiting.
All right, I'll hang up the house phone.
Don't.
Wait.
You're good.
Technological issues on this end.
Okay. Everybody should be good then. You can mute them. Okay.
All right, great. Sue, Eric and I were okay with the minutes. Did you have any objection to the minutes? Or have you not seen the minutes?
No, I read them. I don't, they look fine to me.
All right, public comment. Do we have those sheets? All right, Sandra, you're up first.
Okay, so I've heard from one person, and I know other people have heard from others about the acoustics of the gym and the concern about the bicentennial event that will be held in April. Dignitaries from all levels, and would like to make it as easy for people to understand what's going on as possible. So, what to do? Good question.
Do you have a sense of what the layout will be?
We haven't gotten that far yet. I've never attended anything of this sort in the gym. You all probably have.
All right, you are.
Nobody was around 25 years ago. You were around 25.
That was very small 25 years ago.
Well, I don't know what makes sense. And we have some time to figure it out, but various suggestions like hanging quilts on the walls and things from the ceiling to absorb sound. Apparently there was a parachute some years ago that would get hung up from the ceiling. Anything soft will absorb some of the echoes.
Yeah, I was just asking because I'm thinking that if we could either try to do something for the whole space, or if we know like around how much or what element of the building will be being used, we could focus on that. But
so I guess the who is the we is the next question.
as in who will be doing it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's not, we're not trying to palm it off on other people, we're not taking any of it, but somebody needs to own these stores.
I don't have a good answer for you off the top of my head. We can sort something out.
We'll be in touch.
Yeah. John?
I don't know if it'd be possible to rent like a microphone and sound system from a DJ or something like that.
Yeah, we have that. The issue is the sound bouncing off the walls and the ceiling.
Or you got a microphone.
But it's about the echo more than the volume.
It's all hard surfaces in there, so there's nothing to soften the sound. And actually, I'm sure it's a solvable problem. We just need to get a small team working on it.
Yep. You can follow up with with me and we can figure something out.
I will do that.
Jim?
For years, I've been observing the hill on Stewart Road, as we're going down. And there seems to be some springs in the road, right out in the road. And over the course of 5, 6 years, winter, there's water comes up in summer, spring, and fall, freezes in the road, and breaks the pavement. And over the course of years, it tears that part of the road up. And this is just, at this point, it's a suggestion, it's not a complaint at all. And it's an observation. If the town has access to a backhoe and slag, if that could be, that part of the road, or at least over the springs, could be dug out and slag put in deep enough so it could resurface. And that go out to the side and drain. That would probably take care of that problem. So something, talk to somebody who knows more than I do, but it's something that seems to me that would save in the long run. And if the town has the equipment and the material, it's minimal cost. Not that it's not the cost, but
Is it a spot or are there multiple spots?
I think it's one string, but I think it surfaces in a number of spots. But it's like in a 50-foot stretch.
Gotcha.
Down probably 2/3 of the way down the hill. And I noticed this fall and walking it. There was, when it was first starting freezing, you could see the ice patches where the water was surfacing. And there's cracks that have developed. And when we first moved here, 30 years ago, probably 2 years after we were here, there was a pothole like this. And probably this deep in the center. And they filled it with Monson, which that's all they could do at the time, was a good idea. And speaking of deer, every day you could look up the road and you were looking salt. And you see it right there, looking salt. And it has always been right there. So that's a thought. The other thought that I just want to put in here is, I was listening to a program, I think it was yesterday, about school boards, maybe you heard it. And they were talking about the school boards and the problems that they're having with us, this type of setting. And they said that the person who was reporting said there's not a school board in the state where they don't have to have an officer on them. So it's interesting time here.
Yeah, we can just have Steve take a look at that spot.
That way it just ran.
Yeah. We just put on the.
Just a note,
to-do
that's
list.
all.
Yeah. All right.
So it's on the hill on the Stewart Road.
Yeah, but they'll from the road going down.
Okay.
And it's probably, if you wait till spring and a good dry day, you'll probably see the water staying on the road. Without even having to look for it.
If I remember right there, probably down closer to Arnez's house there, but maybe still 300 or 400 feet back. There's a bunch of ledge there. And I'm not sure what that whole area, because ledge and Monson is uncommon, of course. But that may be a little ravine too, where that spring is running, there's ledge high, ledge low, and then it's just concentrating in that area.
Yeah.
And then when it gets filled out, but you're probably right, if we could use some of that, just ledge chips or ledge slag or whatever, fill that out.
I would be looking at pieces half the size of this piece of paper.
Yeah.
At the bottom, so that they wouldn't fill in.
Yeah.
Keep it up and let it fill.
Just enough so it still runs out through the side or something.
All right. Next up, Fire Department 2021 recap. Tim, you there?
Yep, can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Okay, so really quickly before the recap, I just want to, I'm not going to go into a long story, but I just want to pass along an incident that we had a few weeks ago on a structure fire. Late night call, came in about midnight. And about 2 in the morning, this is one of these calls where it was back on like a 1/4 mile long driveway, lots of ice, lots of snow, very bad situation. And we were kind of stuck. We had a couple trucks that were stuck kind of off the road. Guilford had their tanker stuck. And I had to call Chad Davis, who handles our plowing, at about 2:30 in the morning. And I just want to pass along that, Chad did answer that call, or he got back to me, I should say, really quickly, and actually came out, brought his plow truck, brought the salt sand, helped a skidder guy that we employed to get this truck unstuck. And I just want to put it out there and just let everybody know the appreciation that the fire department has for Chad and what he did for us that night. It was really helpful. Quite frankly, we probably would have had 2 trucks, absolutely floundered without his help. So I just wanted everybody to know, what Chad did for us, because I know too often the plow guy gets sort of the short, maybe not the short end of the stick, but negative things usually abound around him. So I just wanted to put something positive out there. Yeah, so the next really quick thing I want to talk about were structure fires before we do the summary. Unfortunately, we've had a few in the recent month and a half. We had 3 in our fire protection zone, a couple in Guilford that we went and helped on. And this is the time of year, and I just want to put it out there to everybody that, just to use an abundance of caution when it comes to heating. We see a lot of these fires are started by people using portable heating, maybe heaters that they don't use all the time. And so, yeah, I just want to put it out there for people to please use caution, especially when it comes to kerosene heaters or propane heaters. And if anyone has any questions over whether something is safe or not, they can, feel free to call Marty, and she will get a hold of us, and we'd be glad to go out and take a look at the situation and, offer some guidance and let them know if what they're doing is safe or not. Further to the structure fires, I want to put out there that the American Red Cross, who is pretty awesome, every time we have a structure fire, they reach out to the people affected. And they are not surprisingly, in Piscataquis County and in Maine in general, they are short-staffed. So I spoke with Paula Coyle, who is the recruiter for this part of Maine, and she passed along a recruiting poster, which we're going to put up. I'm not sure if Marty was able to print them out and hand them out, but if anybody feels like they want to help the Red Cross, they can reach out to Paula. Her contact details are at the bottom of the flyer. And it's not just about people giving blood. What they really need are people to join their disaster action teams, these are the folks that, when there's a structure fire or a flood or any other disaster like that, and people are in need of help locally, these people are on the ground to provide that service quicker than people like Paula, who are not necessarily going to be in the region right away. So I just wanted to pass that along, and hopefully if anybody would like to donate their time, the Red Cross could certainly use it. And I think that's a very good cause. Okay, so moving on to the call summary for 2021. So we had, like I stated earlier, unfortunately, we had 3 structure fires just recently. So that brought up to the structure fires a total of 4 for 2021. Luckily, our chimney fires went down from the previous year. I think we had 3 or 4 in 2020, and we only had 1 this past year. So hopefully people are getting their chimneys clean. That's a good sign. Motor vehicle accidents, we had 14 this past season. Most of them were minor and not a big deal, but we did have a few fairly major ones, including a car fire as a result of a motor vehicle accident. Next up, we had 5 wildland fires. These typically happen in the summertime when things are dried out, but it was not as bad a year as we feared. So that's a positive note for the wildland fires. Tree on the line, this is a very common call that we get, typically in the wintertime. When the weather turns cold, it gets windy and trees get filled with snow. We had 10 of those this year. Medical calls are next up, and this is with recent trends, medical calls are starting to become our number one volume. We had 91 medical calls in 2021. That's I'd have to look at that. We're probably tickling on a record, I would dare say. We had 3 vehicle fires this past year, and service calls, we had 12, and service calls are anything like an alarm going off or a basement flooding, or even doing overhaul on a previous fire, which we do occasionally have to do. And then lastly, we had 5 mutual aid calls. I believe this year, all of our mutual aid calls were with Guilford for structure fires and for wildland fires. So that brought us to a total of 145 calls for the season, for the year rather. Yeah, we're hopeful that we'll have a less busy year in 2022.
Thanks, Tim. Do you know offhand how that total compares with the previous year?
It's very similar. I didn't bring the numbers, but we typically run around 150 calls. So I would say it's a fairly average number of calls for a year.
Got it. And how are we doing with volunteer, or rather with staff and so on? You feel like you have the coverage you need?
We do. In fact, we've got a brand new firefighter that's going to be starting. We just voted him on. Your neighbor across the street, Tony, will be joining the department in the coming weeks once we get all the paperwork filled out. We've got a new EMT on the rolls, and Jamie Pullen, and we've got a couple people that are going to be starting EMT class here, or at least one person starting EMT class in February. So we're hopefully continuing to expand our EMS coverage in the area.
Great. I had a question as far as mutual aid. Of those fires that we had, how many of those were mutual fires?
So the structure fires, the number of structure fires that Monson had in their fire district were 4 for 2021. And then for mutual aid, those were a mix. Give me one second, and I think I've got it. We had 2 structure fires that we responded to that were in Guilford's protection zone, and then 3 wildland fires. So the 5 mutual aid calls were 3 wildland fires and 2 structure fires.
What are we doing to, get some community output on checking chimneys, fire extinguishers, and all that? Are we doing anything?
Well, unfortunately, my understanding is that we don't have, the insurance does not allow us to do chimney cleaning any longer. I believe this was before my time, but I believe in the past, Monson Fire did provide that as a service, but that doesn't happen anymore. Which I don't know what people feel about that. I mean, chimney sweeps, it's fairly important, and I know a lot of people do it themselves or just don't do it at all. So that's a big tool that we could have that we don't right now. I'm sure that Phil would be very open to opening us up if we could get it past the insurance companies. I'm not sure what would be involved in that. And then we always
I
have.
didn't word it correctly.
Go ahead.
I didn't word it correctly. I just was wondering if there was a checklist or something that could be given to the community that we service, just to have people aware of what some of the problem issues are: chimneys, smoke alarms, any type of things like that, stoves being too close to the wall, et cetera, et cetera. Not so much of us doing it ourselves, as far as cleaning chimneys and stuff like that. I suppose there are fire departments that do that, but I was just looking for more around awareness.
Yeah, I mean, no, I guess the short answer is we don't really have a 1-pager, but that's actually a pretty good idea. In fact, I'm taking some notes here, and I'd be glad to take that on. I think it's not a bad idea that we just have a simple, like I said, a 1-pager that we could just put out to the general public, maybe even put on the Facebook page and the Monson website, just as a general safety guideline. So I'll take that as an action item, Eric. That's a great idea.
All I had. Thanks.
Sue, anything from you?
Sorry, no, I don't. Can't talk.
All right, thanks. Thanks, Tim.
No problem.
Was acknowledgement of that he was here at the beginning. Yeah. All right, select board reports, Eric.
Well, the only thing I had was, it's like, I guess Tim was talking a little bit around the circle of events that go on during a snowstorm or sanding or whatever it might be, but essentially it's not a rumor mill if it's factual, but what we need to do is get to the point of if there's a problem with the road, sanding and stuff like that, the first call is to make to the town manager who handles the contract for the person who's providing services for plowing and sanding, and check and see if that's a legitimate concern as well. But then also, if the town manager isn't available, then call one of the selectmen and we'll try to do the best we can to try to get a hold of Marty in the interim until we hire a new town manager or road commissioner. But and the other thing too is that in hearing some of the conversations secondhand, I know it's secondhand, but the only one that the plowing contractor should take any direction from is the manager, the town manager, or the road commissioner, whatever that might be, and not from individuals, because we have the contract, we know what the wording is and stuff like that, that yes, that's available to the public to see what there is in that contract, but there should be one point person that handles that. That's all I have.
All right, thanks. Sue?
Sorry, if you can hear me. I'm under the understanding that my participation tonight is just as a listener because we still have to consider the remote policy. Is that correct?
Sure, although I'll be happy to move back into public comment and give you the opportunity to share there if you would like.
I really didn't have anything because I didn't expect that I would be participating. I'm sorry.
Okay, no problem. All right, the only thing on my immediate list for today is that some members of the community have communicated they'd like to get the rec committee rebooted. A number of young families in town, and so I just flagged this for follow-up. I can give you some details later, Marty. But glad to see that there was interest not only in having one, but specific people who are interested in helping organize that. All right, next up is town committee reports. Presumably festival committee and bicentennial will be the same topic for tonight since it's snow roller, right?
I guess it is so. I'm happy to say that a bunch of people have stepped up to make Snow Roller Day bigger and better than ever. Next Tuesday to firm up the plans that have been put in place. Should be pretty good. We're trying to get things moved. It's we is the, not me, it's them. Trying to get things moved mostly down to the lake, away from the gym, so that it's a focus area. The Historical Society will be open all day as a warming station, restrooms, hot chocolate, and selling bicentennial merchandise, of course. So, things are shaping up nicely.
Great.
Which segues into bicentennial committee. We have merchandise that is selling well. It's in a number of places around town. The brochure is at the printer or magazine, I guess it is. It's a 44-page book at this point, full of ads, of local vendors, and that should be available in a couple of weeks, I believe. Which will be good.
Excellent.
And beautification. We kind of pull back mode, but we're still thinking of big things that we could spend money on and raise money. Do things for the town. Some of the ideas you had yesterday, Tyler, the idea of the forest greenway, whatever you want to call it. That's an awesome idea. That's one of the roots to make that happen.
Yes, I'll just add that there is a, so part, for example, the renovations to this room and the artisan cottage, et cetera, are covered by, or in part funded by the grant from the Maine Community Foundation that was part of this entrepreneurial pilot program that Monson was awarded. Monson was subsequently awarded some follow-on funding for expansion of these initiatives. And then we were informed earlier this week that we're likely in line for yet more funding for the work that we're doing. And so they had actually asked, what is your wish list? If you could do anything you wanted and beautification was one of those items, what would that be? Because they're looking to help us build out the budget for those initiatives.
It's a good thing that there are a lot of great ideas and interested people in town that can probably make a lot of this stuff happen without taxing the taxpayers.
Yeah. There are a lot of interesting parties out there that would like to see small towns grow and succeed and are looking for communities that have engaged citizen groups and are already doing this work on their own, and we fit that bill, so they're excited to support us.
That's great. I'm done.
Cool. Well, thanks again. Old business interview and hiring committee.
Yes. So you guys had wanted to toss around some ideas about having some people on an interview committee. So I guess we're just gonna carry on with that discussion. Sue had some thoughts and everybody sort of had some thoughts. So I guess if we put that out there and we'll get that ball rolling.
Yeah, maybe we'll start with what you were proposing.
Well, it's just as far as the hiring committee goes, the basic group of people would consist of the 3 selectmen and the interim town manager, Marty. In addition to that, I think that would be good to go out and also seek some input from town citizens on, basically some criteria of people or, attributes that an individual might bring to a town that would be helpful to the town, It's not like we're gonna be able to, get a cookie cutter type person that's gonna do it all, but that's valuable, And then basically set, as Sue also said, from that, set some questions that are all standard for each person that we interview. And anyway, pretty much the standard up there.
Sue, did you want to add anything?
Somebody was not muted, so it was really hard to hear. Eric, would you mind repeating just that last couple sentences? And if somebody's not muted, if they could mute, that would be great.
Well, from the job description and also from the input that we get from people that are looking for certain attributes from the applicants that are applying for this position, we develop questions similar to what you had suggested that are standard questions that are asked of everybody the same. And then we go from there in deciding, who best meets those qualifications in the interview process.
No, you got it perfectly. I was just suggesting, and Eric kind of read my mind or my email, I'm not sure which, but
I read your email.
The interview committees that I've been on in the school systems I've worked, we've always had like standardized questions and related to the important job qualifications. Excuse me, I don't want to cough. And scenarios that would be also related to, some things that a town manager would have to deal with. But I like your idea of getting input from town employees and citizens as well. So thanks, Eric. Good job.
That's what we used to do back in the old days when I worked for the public Second.
So you guys are thinking of having like a committee that actually sits in on the interviews, or you're thinking of just collecting some input
Collecting
prior to
information.
conducting them?
Yeah. I'm not looking for 20 people to sit in an interview process there.
Right.
I think it makes it easier when there's a smaller group.
So you're thinking just maybe collect input and then like prior to doing the interviews, like have a couple of discussion sessions or something like that,
And
that's,
standardize some questions.
okay. Is that something that you would like to do at a select board meeting, and maybe we could put it out there that that will be happening at a particular select board meeting?
We can do that or do a work session either way.
So if we did a work session, that would be just pretty much an extra meeting that was publicized, and if somebody wanted to come and chime in.
I
and
think
they-
I'd much rather have it that way too, is because we have so many different things that come up in a regular meeting.
Yeah.
It's fragmented, and I'd rather have something that we focus on, so we make good choices.
Okay.
Let's just double check the guidelines for hiring practices, because there might be different rules for hiring a town manager than just general conducting of town business.
Yep.
But it sounds like as far as the formal piece goes, that we'll just stick with the select board as opposed to having a broader.
But whatever is fair, consistent, you know.
Well, you guys have a time frame that you'd like to have, you know, this work session and discussion happen?
So logistically, I'm out of town until the next select board meeting.
Okay, so it'd be after that, maybe shortly after that.
Yeah, so what we could do in the meantime is work on, we could send you suggestions for the standard info that we'd like to ask of candidates.
Okay.
And then kick off this process. Folks from now.
Yeah, the one thing I thought about too is whether or not we have a formal meeting where we pare down candidates, maybe half the people. I'm not sure if we're gonna try to interview all 12.
Well, we could certainly have a session where we go through everything together
Yeah.
and then shortlist, yeah. But we should, I think the group should review all the applicants.
So have two work sessions then, one to sort of whittle it down and then the next to determine, or all at once. You think?
Well, I'm thinking we could have this remote participation thing really messes things up. But we could, what if we did the first work session just prior to the next select board meeting?
Okay.
Like at 5 or something, 5:30.
Also the same day, just that,
We can do that quickly with some of the information that we have and some of those resumes.
Or at least just a first session to get it started.
Okay. You can all right.
Eric,
We could-
I'm sorry,
we could
Tyler,
probably-
or either. Do these work sessions need to be executive sessions?
Well, that's why I asked Marty to double check, because I
Okay.
suspect they do need to be.
Good catch.
Do we want to? Well, I guess we should put out some sort of notice that we're going to start reviewing applications in 2 weeks. And so if people want to get their resumes in, then they should. So, all right, next up is sign ordinance.
Yeah, that was one I put in there again. As I before, and as I mentioned, I don't have the issue with having a sign ordinance, but I think it should be easily measured as to the distance that it needs to be off the road, away from a side boundary or something like that. So again, too, if you don't have any place to measure like from the road, there's a legal measurement, and it's really the best guess of where that line would be away from the road. That is the offset for the beginning beginning of the ordinance, and there's some additional, I forget now, 6 to 8 feet beyond that. But as our previous code enforcement officer said, that, you know, it's very difficult to determine the distance from either a side property line, if it was clearly marked, or the road, if that isn't clearly marked, or unless we hire a surveyor, and there are marking points, that would be the case in this particular situation. But that's going to be a bigger cost to town. It's an easy way to rewrite this ordinance so it can be measured and it can be utilized to decide whether or not the sign is out of performance. That's all. And I think that needs to be done all the time.
So the specific, actually, Brian, I'll defer to you on this as well, if you're willing, is the issue with the sign ordinance as it is, as the, well, we have a specific use case here. The issue is that the point from which you measure the setback is not defined, right?
Not defined.
Okay, so some sort of language that fills in those instances.
Yeah. And it can be, I mean, there's several instances where it could be the road or the state ownership, or it could be the ownership between two owners where the line is not clearly marked and the sign has to be so many feet away from the adjacent owner's line.
Mhm.
If that isn't clearly marked by either paint or whatever, then you can't determine where that location is. So it's the same thing on any location. And then, of course, besides that, the state does have their own ordinances around visibility. When there's a car that either egresses or exits out of the driveway, they need to be able to see up and down the road. That's the reason for the offset. But again, too, all of that's kind of complicated by not having a solid benchmark to begin with to measure back from. You know, to really determine whether or not you are off the offset of the ownership line enough so that you legally measure it and then determine whether or not the sign is visible or not, or a blockage to traffic coming up and down the road.
So, Brian, if I could ask, are there any instances that you've come across over the years where we had an issue similar to what we're talking about with the medical clinic sign, where the boundary was not measurable and therefore was not enforceable? Or is this
You're
the only
asking
case?
me, no. If you're asking me about the sign ordinance, and I can't understand Eric on this thing, I don't hear him well, but any line anywhere in the state of Maine, if it's not plainly marked by a painted line, the CEO of whatever town it is, city or whatever, cannot determine where that line is. And the same thing goes for a property line that is not marked, such as the one across the road with the Spring Creek barbecue. That line between those two buildings is not plainly marked. So you can't, CEOs cannot determine where it is. And on the state, you get it, all they want you to do is get it out of their right of way. And on the town, the line goes to the center of the road on a town road. It isn't the right of way. So there's no real need to rewrite the ordinance, but that's my opinion.
So why have it? You can't enforce it.
What do you
I
say?
guess my question here is, well, I guess Eric's question is about enforcement, but I guess my question is slightly different, which is, have we ever had an issue like this in the past, or is this the first time we've seen this type of
An issue like
testing
this in the,
come up?
you asked if there was an issue like this in the past? Is that
Yeah,
your question? No,
correct, yeah. Yeah, we probably don't have a lot of people contesting signs.
Again, if it comes up again, and if it's not enforceable, we just go like this. So, doesn't matter. All I'm just saying, if you have one ordinance that's a true ordinance and we enforce it, then the next one, whether it pertains to the same thing, should be something that's enforceable as well, you know, and be measured. Or otherwise, throw it out, you know. It just isn't a fair. It isn't apples and apples. I'm not worried about the sign. I'm worried about whether or not you come into the situation again and you get into the same situation where whoever the code enforcement officer says the same thing. I can't measure it. There's no true boundary. There's nothing that indicates where the line is.
Yeah, I mean, I have to imagine that our ordinance is probably not unique.
Well, you know, I don't think the planning board developed that ordinance. I think all they did was snag something from another area, you know, just copy it over, or it's a state ordinance. You know. It's like anything else until you run into a problem. It's like anything else. Why do you think you have so many amendments to the Constitution? Because people found issues. You know, so. That's all I'm saying.
Sue, any thoughts on this?
I hear what Eric is saying. I guess I'd be curious what our attorney thinks of our ordinance. You know, is there anything in it that is different from, you know, the typical sign ordinance of other towns? I don't know.
But to your point earlier about the planning board versus the select board, I don't know offhand who would lead that effort. Do you? You know, Marty?
I don't know. But maybe, you know, maybe Sue's right, show it to the attorney and say, you know, explain the problem and say, this isn't really enforceable because of this and this. Is there something, is there a way that we can change it? What's the procedure to get it changed? You know, that might be the most straightforward way to get an answer and get pointed in the right direction.
You know, it's like whatever we have for ordinances, whether it's building permits, whether it's shoreline zoning, whether it's whatever. I think most of those have some measurable point or a high water mark, for instance, like shoreline zoning. Building permits are fairly obvious, you know, if you add something onto your building, you know, that it creates more value than usually it's a building permit. If you do something inside that's within the whole structure of the building, you don't need a permit, you know, and you can go on and on. But if you have something like this that isn't really measurable and you run into the same thing, regardless of whether or not you won't see it again for another 25 or 30 years, why wouldn't you have something that at least is measurable?
And another sentence even that says, if there is no measurable line, then this is how we do it. You know, what that sentence is, I don't know, but, you know.
I don't think this is such a big thing. It's just, you know. Putting in whatever you need to make it measurable.
Sure. Let's just look for the immediate term. Let's find out what the process is here and get that feedback. And
Yeah, I'll just send it over.
all right, status of CEO search.
That would probably, maybe fit into the work session as far as putting together, the description, because I think I printed off and gave you guys the one that Rachel had sent to me, but obviously that's not the same situation as here. You know, as far as compensation, are we gonna stay the way it's always been? Are we gonna do something a little different? Because if we post it, then these questions start coming in, and so we just kind of need to have answers before that. So if we wanted to talk about that, maybe during the work session about putting, you know, the town manager as well, and just kind of come up with a plan, so we know what we're doing before we,
With the code enforcement. officer.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know if what we have been doing right along, because Brian's done it for years, and if that's just been the way it's been forever, then, you know, that it might fit in that situation, but I don't know how it compares to, you know, what other towns do and stuff, so just a discussion would need to be had as far as how we're gonna handle that. Description of what their responsibilities are, maybe Brian can help out with that as far as what they're being hired to do. So anyway, yeah, just maybe make that part of the discussion when we're talking about job descriptions and compensation and things like that.
Okay, sounds good. Sue, any thoughts to add?
Nope.
All right. Next up is property maintenance ordinance.
So when the Hooglers had come and expressed their concerns, you know, we found out what Milo did, and they do have an ordinance now, a property maintenance ordinance, which I believe I also had printed off. It's a little, I know that a lot of people don't want to see that, they don't want to have that happen, but this instance is kind of extreme, and I've had calls from a couple of other residents, not about this particular residents, but other properties in town, that trash, you know, just garbage is left around, and rodents are coming onto their property from the other property and things like that. So I guess it just needs to be decided is, do we want to have some kind of ordinance like that for extreme circumstances or not? So I guess that is the question of the day. You know, further discussion needs to be had, or, you know, just, you know, like the ordinance that Milo had, you know, they had in there, I mean, one thing that I particularly remember, you can't have a yard sale for more than 3 days. You know, I don't think we need something like that, or,
That could be taken out.
right, a lot of things could be, but maybe just, and is that something that you guys even want to do? You know, when it gets to really infringing on somebody else, I kind of feel like that's not fair. I don't know.
Again, too, some of that would have to be, you know, passed by an attorney to make sure that what we are infringing on the person who's the perpetrator
Right.
that causing the issues. And
Right. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure Milo must have gone through some of the legwork.
Yeah.
I'd be much more inclined to make sure that he was done right too, but having somebody else check it.
Yeah.
But I can so much understand the situation. And I feel for them. I do feel. For them.
Yeah.
I really, and I think we should pursue something. But I also want to make sure that it doesn't get to the point where it affects other property maintenance that people are trying to do the best they can with what little they have, you know,
Right.
and not having to paint their house every 5 years.
Oh,
or something
exactly.
like
We
that.
don't want to be out
Yeah.
measuring people's grass and, you know, anything like
Yeah.
that, but just, you know, to cover just extreme circumstances where it really is unfair to the other guy, whether it's smells
Especially
or
rubbish.
rodents. Yeah,
Multitudes of junk vehicles.
and maybe we could keep it strictly to garbage. I don't know.
Yeah.
You know, or things that would attract, you know, rodents and things like that.
Yeah, so we would, I mean, obviously tailor to our community, and then also has to go up for a public vote anyway.
Right.
Yeah.
So I would certainly be in favor of picking up this discussion at the next meeting and talking about a draft.
May I ask a question?
Please.
So the original situation where it kind of got this started, we left it at that meeting that Sue had asked one of the select board members to accompany her on a visit. Did that ever happen?
Not to my knowledge.
I haven't heard anything about it.
That's probably something that should be pursued.
Sorry, Sue, you cut out for a sec. I think the issue is on our end. Could you repeat that?
Sure. I just was saying this probably should be pursued because that was what we all agreed on as her, as her role as a town health officer.
You want to reach out, because she hasn't come and said that, because I had thought that she was going to come to us if she was going to do that and go pay a visit. Do we want to see where she stands or see if she maybe changed her mind?
Yeah. I thought she was going to initiate that with us, but I could have misunderstood.
Yeah, I think she was doing that in her capacity as the health official, right? And so I think in that sense, it's her prerogative, and if she would like us to support them, we can.
Okay, so if she comes and says, I would like to go over there, okay.
It can't hurt to just check in with her.
Yeah, I will.
All right, next up is new business abatements.
Okay, so the assessor does have some abatements here, which you guys sign. I think that a lot of them are pretty cut and dry, but we did write a little note on this file. We felt like I should have emailed this to you, so sorry. When you're done reading it, maybe I can help out real quick.
Well, she can't sign anything tonight anyway.
Okay. Yeah. And these are the ones that letter was attached to. The others.
So if I understand correctly, he's not challenging it, he's just saying that it's too old and he can't do it, right? So this was made back then, just like the process, is that the issue?
And I'm not super familiar with all of them. What was the question?
The email says that from Josh said, yep, it's been sent to the town, so it sounds like. It was
Right,
sent
yes,
and then just
exactly,
sat
it got
somewhere.
lost there. Yep.
I used a different, I said it sat somewhere. Do we do anything with this, or we sign this one? This is just for records.
It looks like,
Oh, wait, oh no, this is 1 year, this is the other year, right?
yeah, so I'm thinking that this is the one to sign. they all. So,
Same people differently. What is this? This one is.
wondering if it's-
Yeah, one is for 2020, the second is for 2021. It should be two.
yeah, we do this. That, we also have the cemetery deed for, Daryl and Mary Whitmer. That's all put together and this needs to be filed.
Hunter tested positive today for COVID. Oh, sorry.
We need to vote. We voted this last time.
Right, so, yeah, nope, that just makes things fine. And then this one here, the septic agreement for the, waste site that we're required to have that, this is just the annual. For that.
That went off.
That's, this is that ordinance that I found, Trying to send a copy.
So this has already been passed recently.
Right, right. Because the company needs it in order to.
Did we? No, it's passed. We voted to send it to the town meeting.
Right.
Yeah. So I'll move that we accept, well, that we renew the contracts with Patterson Septic Tank and Plumbing for 2022. Second.
And one more thing that just Tyler needs to sign. So Daniel had been the 911 addressing officer for the town, and we currently don't have one, but we need to have one. So that obviously needs to be me. So once this here is signed, it just needs to be signed by the chair, and then I can attend a training to just learn how to do it and be able to do that. I did have one come up, and the county can help me out with that one, but they're not supposed to be doing that. She's only supposed to be putting on organized territory, so that's what that is.
Do you remember if this was passed through legal,
What is it?
the contract with the fire? department? Gave us two services ordinance. Stuff like that.
That I don't know. I thought that the whole thing was a done deal,
Yeah.
but I found out that it wasn't, so I don't know that.
I'm fairly certain it was because I think it was drafted by legal before we looked at that draft.
It's been so long.
Yeah. But it's, I guess we could send it back if we wanted to, but it's already been approved by the.
Yeah.
I do remember it being, it had gone to legal before Daniel brought it to us.
So, yeah, could you just check in our notes to see if it says? I just wanna.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
But
I can look back. I did look back.
this should have been done 5 months ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it might have been done, but I forgot about it.
So we want to know if anybody with legal eyes has looked at it.
Yeah. Really just ties insurance companies to. And if they can't recover, anything, they're not gonna go after you.
Right. And the rest of it states that, and we're only going after insurance companies, not individuals. It really is just an insurance thing, and we're not gonna even pursue it through insurance companies if it doesn't happen.
But we remember that.
Right, and the last item is freedom of access, right to know.
Yep, I just wanted to make a quick comment on that. I've had a few people come in just wondering about that. So there is no official form to fill out. Some towns have them, some towns don't. The state does not require it. I tended to try to keep it simple and as informal as possible. So basically, if anybody needs anything, I do have a form now, just in case anybody did want to fill it out. But pretty much just wanted to put out there, if anybody needs anything, pretty much everything is public public knowledge, except for, employee stuff and just different private information, but,
Personnel.
yeah, personnel stuff and, so anything that anybody needs or wants, just come in and see me and, I'll do my best to get it for you as quickly as I can. Sometimes takes a little longer these days, just because there's so much more to do. But I do have a form but it's not required to fill it out if someone doesn't want to. So I just wanted to put that out there.
All right,
That's it.
cool. Thanks. Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right, thanks, everybody.
I know we've already adjourned, but I just realized there are a couple things we said that we were going to talk about, maybe put them on the next meeting.
Okay.
The update on the public Wi-Fi.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't have anything substantive, so I didn't push for it tonight, but
Oh,
by
okay.
next meeting.
And just that whole gym generator information.
Oh, right. That is just, we're competing with other counties. So what they were doing today was just taking pictures and they're gonna submit that and then, so there's really nothing to report right now.
Okay.
But further information will be coming.
That was
Okay.
no cost to the town if we did get that.
Well, there may be, but that would be something up, we'll put that on the agenda next time too, as far as potential cost for what we, our end of it. But they did say that we don't have to accept it, once it comes. We don't have to accept it, so anyway.
And Tyler, did you want to consider the remote meeting policy at some point?
Yeah, so actually what we need to start with the hearing, right?
Yeah.
So we need to post and start with the hearing. That's why I didn't bring it up tonight. So
Right.
we can post it now or, post it and that was the other thing. We have to hearing, right? Or can we call a hearing in between meetings?
I don't know.
Can we do this talk now because the meeting's closed?
Yeah, we'll put this on, and then, the hearing for, I'll look into that. I don't know if it has to be voted on or if we just call a hearing.
Yeah, maybe if we can just merge it with the next meeting.
Yep.
Hopefully I'll be well enough to attend.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, and that was for the,
Remote participation policy. Yeah, sorry, I meant to bring that up at the beginning.
Did I be up first thing in the morning to sign those warrants?
Yeah.
All right. Okay, thanks, everybody.
all right.
Good.
End meeting for all, right?
Yep.